just want to sit there.
Okay.
Right there until we start. That's better than being
That's good.
in front of the house. God, I'm sorry.
Hi, folks. If you could take a seat, we'll get things started. Well, welcome. It's wonderful to see so many people here tonight. I think all of us really get a great burst of energy being in these sort of settings again, back to more normalcy, and begin to see folks from the community together at these special events. So thank you, first of all, for being here. My name is Chet Zamblak. I'm the chairperson of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and I'm very happy to be here this evening. And very happy to hear our panel in a few short moments as well here too. Welcome to our Celebrate Giving, Power of Philanthropy. Thank you for joining us as we continue to celebrate Greater Lowell Community Foundation's 25-year anniversary. And what a wonderful year it's been to celebrate with our community. Greater Lowell Community Foundation's work would not be possible without the generosity of our partners in philanthropy. I want to thank GLCF's premier partner, Enterprise Bank, our platinum partners, Nancy L. Donahue, DCU, Eastern Bank, Eastern Salt Company, and Trinity EMS, our gold partners, Pride Star EMS and SNR Corporation, and our silver partners, Accutronics, Align Credit Union, Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union, Juniper Networks, Lowell 5, NetScout, Red Hat, Salem 5, the Tebow Foundation, and the WinnCompanies. So if we could have a little applause for all of our partners, that would be appreciated. I'm not sure if folks have had a chance to see the latest newsletter from GLCF, but it's extremely refreshing to see how many things have happened in the community, and to see where GLCF has been able to assist in so many of these endeavors right here. Just last Friday, we had the lighting of the Willette Bridge, or the Aiken Street Bridge, which is very exciting to see. Also recently, last week, we had Mosaic Lowell. We had basically the announcement that there's $1 million being donated through the Bar Foundation to really enhance the cultural economy here of Lowell. And what a wonderful concept, and what a wonderful way to address and bring together so many different elements of culture that we have here in our rich city. It's now my pleasure to introduce the GLCF President and CEO, Jay Linnehan, who will provide a few remarks and moderate this evening as well. Jay?
Thank you. Who's taking my notes? Can't do that. So I too want to welcome everybody being here this evening. I mean, over the last couple of years, obviously we've dealt with COVID, and we've done things in a way that's different than what we were accustomed to doing. I was talking to somebody the other day about that, and it was the 2020 annual meeting. And the 2020 annual meeting, needless to say, was in the middle of the summer. It was in June, and it was all Zoom. And we were so accustomed to having a program, having a reception, and then the thing I loved most of the time is folks hung around after the event, and they mingled after the event, and that was probably my favorite part of the event. But of course, that year on 2020, it's on Zoom. I'm in my office. I'm by myself. The meeting's over. Boom! My screen goes black, and I sat there by myself. It was like, okay, pull out the tissues, because I pretty much almost had tears in my eyes. And I said, don't like this at all. So I'm really thrilled to see everybody back with us this evening, to say the least. And in putting things together like this, it takes a team, and I'm really fortunate to have a lot of people that help us do that. First, I want to say thank you to our host, to UTEC. Greg, thank you for always being so gracious for us. And of course, make no mistake, I'm not the person who puts all the details together for this. I get up and speak, but I am really, really lucky to have a great staff that does all the details for this. So I want to thank them. I'm not going to rattle all their names off, but I want them to stand if they would for me, please. So could you guys stand? If you're not already standing. Jennifer and Sharon and Howard and Janine and Felice and Fatima's not with us tonight, but she does a lot with that too. And those are the folks that make me look good all the time, and I thank them very, very much for that. They work really, really hard to do the work that we do with the foundation. And again, needless to say, over the last couple of years, it's not been business as usual. I also would like to thank some of our board members that are here. You've met Chet, but I'm happy to say that we've got Sue Beaton, Patty Mason, Brian Chapman, Andrea Batchelder, Jay Stevens, Karen Frederick, John Chumley, and Cherise Lattimore. Anybody who sits on a nonprofit board or works for a nonprofit knows full well that it's all about the board that you have. And I am very blessed to have an awesome board. So thanks to them, if you would, for me, please. So we're in our 25th year. 25 years ago, thank you. I had an event earlier in September where we had a bunch of board members there, and we were talking about the 25th year, and they said, where are we going to be in 25 years? I said, not quite sure, but I'm not going to be here doing that, for sure. But I've been really happy to be here now 6.5 years, 6 3/4 years. I started in 2016. And it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me to do that. Met lots of nice people, we've done lots of nice, cool things, and we're looking to do a lot more really good things. But 25 years ago, we started with an endowment of $50,000. I like the number as of 12/31/21 for obvious reasons, $59 million. It's gone down a little bit. I like October. October was good. And interestingly enough, we do 25 times more in grants and scholarships than we did 25 years ago, obviously for all of those reasons. So thank you all for that. So COVID, what have we done for the last 2 years? I mean, it certainly has been a challenge, and I know that you folks all know that, but I think interestingly enough with respect to community foundations, I'm not so sure everybody really had an understanding of what community foundations did 2 years ago. It was like, what do community foundations do? What are they all about? Well, community foundations were front and center through all of this COVID piece. I think first and foremost, it started with the Mass COVID Relief Fund. Lauren Baker put that together and decided that community foundations were the way to go to get money out to the people who needed it most in the quickest and most efficient way possible, and we did that. So I'm pleased to say that. And during that whole period, needless to say, I think everybody will remember during the summer of 2020, we also dealt with lots of racial and social justice issues too. So we've been working on those two fronts for the last 2 years, and we will continue to do that. And as we look forward, I think it's going to be continuing to do the things that we've been doing in the past, and that's how do we assess what the needs are in our community? And that is a task. That is work that we do. That is the reason that we have a multiple of people from various walks of life that sit on the GLCF board, and the reason that we do the homework and the research that we do to make sure that as we align the resources we have, and we've aligned $7 million worth of resources for COVID over and above what GLCF typically does over the last couple of years. That is a tremendous responsibility to make sure that happens in the best way possible to have the best impact possible. And, you know, kind of a self-serving comment, but I think we did that. And I think we did that with the work and support of so many people that are in this room, staff included, but the nonprofits and lots of the folks that sit on our board have helped us do that. So, I could go on, and actually I did that a week ago standing here to NEMCOG for another hour when I talked about what GLCF did during COVID. I'm not going to do that today, so rest assured. I have a program that I want to get through, and I'm going to get to that because we've got a couple of awards that I'd like to do tonight, and we've got a grant we'd like to do tonight. And then we've got this great panel of folks that are going to help us talk about what is the power of philanthropy. And I think that is such a cool topic because, you know, oftentimes when I talk about philanthropy, and I've written notes about this in the past, it's like, well, philanthropy, it's kind of a big word. What does that mean? And no, that's not for me. That's too complicated. That's, you know, for people that have big houses and drive big cars. Not true. We're going to hear a lot about that later. But right now, the first thing I want to do as we get in with the awards is the Business Philanthropy Partner Award. So the Business Philanthropy Partner Award this year goes to WinnCompanies. And let's give them a round of applause. Now, everybody's aware that one of the most pressing problems that we have and continues is housing and homelessness. So we go back a few years, and as I reached out to Win and reached out to Larry, it was like, absolutely. We had a symposium talking about housing. We've had, you know, groups to get together that talked about housing. And then during COVID, one of the biggest fears that we all had was, you know, that there was this, you know, moratorium. Folks weren't going to get evicted. Win Company didn't need an order from anybody to tell them that they were going to treat the folks who lived and worked in the places that they owned and rented that they had to worry about being evicted. They did not do that. Stand-up company that does lots of great stuff, puts affordable housing into their projects all the time, and has been a partner at GLCF as long as I've been there. And he's a person, when I call, he picks up the phone. It is my great pleasure to award this award to the Win Company's Larry Curtis. Larry. If you wish.
Thank you, Jay. So cities like Lowell are near and dear to our heart. I'm a resident of the Merrimack Valley. We do work all over the country, but nothing is more important to us than the great work we do in the city of Lowell at Boot Mills, Counting House Lofts, Add-in Furniture Building, Loft 27, recently the new build at 201 Canal. We strive to build mixed-income communities. We strive to make housing for all, and we love to partner with local organizations like Greater Lowell Community Foundation and others to make this great city even better every day. So thank you for the award. Thank you.
So our second award is the Steve Jonkus Community Connector Award, and the person that was named after is in the audience, and I've asked him to join me up here, and he's on his way here right now. Steve Jonkus. I was going to try to make it a little bit of a secret as to who it was, but I guess the cat's out of the bag already, as I was going to use a pronoun rather than the first name on this, but I guess I'm not going to do that anymore.
Well, you said you were in a hurry.
Well, yeah, but my hurry is different than your hurry. So the surprise is that the award goes to Bopa Malone, but let me just say a little bit about her. I would like to share from her nomination. In addition to having helped thousands of people create financial success for themselves, their families, and their businesses through her work at Enterprise Bank, she is actively involved with several nonprofits. She's a trustee at Middlesex Community College, Tufts Medicine, Lowell General Hospital, International Institute of New England, Women Work in Wonders, and is a member of the board a member of the Bedford Selectmen Mass Rotary Club Chamber of Commerce. She lives with her husband and her two children in Bedford. And most recently, Bopa Malone, it's Bopa, stepped up as the interim executive director of Girls Inc. of Greater Lowell, where she is also an alum, a parent, and a past board member. Interestingly enough, we've done this award last year. She was a nominee last year as well. Didn't make the cut, but she certainly made it this year. It is absolutely our pleasure to award the 2022 GLCF Steve Jonkus Community Connector Award to Bopa Malone. If you would like to say a word?
Yes, I would love to. So thank you, Jay, and thank you for the good work that you and the foundation have done and continue to do for the community. I would like to thank Carrie Meikle for nominating me. I've served with Carrie on the Women Working Wonders board for over a decade, and she serves on my board at Girls Incorporated of Greater Lowell. This means the world to me to be nominated by a strong, smart, and bold woman who embodies what this award is all about. It also means the world to me to be recognized for this award. About 10 years ago, when I was working at Enterprise Bank, one of my first experiences with nonprofit organization was joining the Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association, CMAA. The organization was losing its funding, morale was low, and the community had lost confidence in the organization's ability to help its people. I saw that the community would suffer if this organization was allowed to fail, so I stepped up to become president. Soon after, the executive director resigned, so I took on those responsibilities as well. I felt scared, overwhelmed, and unprepared for this important role. That was when I first met Steve Jonkus. Steve was chair of the Community Foundation at the time, so I went to look for him to ask for help, for guidance and support. And thankfully, he gave me that, and he introduced me to a ton of amazing people and resources. As a result, because of Steve's help in the foundation and the community, CMAA thrived. They doubled their budget during my tenure, and they're still serving Cambodians and other immigrants today. I consider that experience an important step in my journey, from a scared Cambodian refugee to who I am today. If you were to tell me when I was a little girl living in the Thailand refugee camp that I would one day come to the US and live the life that I have now, I wouldn't have believed it. If you were to tell me that I would overcome trauma and fear to one day have a beautiful family, to help create success for people and the community, and to come full circle to lead another organization that has had such an enormous impact on my life, I wouldn't have believed it. Today, I'm serving as Executive Director of Girls Incorporated, an organization that helps girls to become strong, smart, and bold. This organization helped me when I was a scared teenage girl, giving me hope and helping me navigate two cultural worlds. I believe strongly in the expression, "From those to whom much has been given, much will be expected," and I'm so happy and proud to come full circle to serve with this amazing organization that has meant so much to me. I'd like to thank our board member, Carrie and Sumita, who are here tonight, and our board chair, Jennifer Aradia. She's amazing. And I want to thank our staff, Kathy Colletti and Kathleen Gable, who are here tonight as well. We're working together to lead a new generation of girls to become stronger, smarter, and bolder by providing them and connecting them with resources and research-based programs. And soon, we're expanding our campus to be an even better safe haven for girls in our community. I would love to invite all of you to come and visit Girls Inc. And please check us out at girlsinklowell.org. And please, if there's any advice, anything that you have for me, because I'm new and I know all of you have been in this for a while, I would love to hear it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this award and this opportunity.
Don't forget that. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Boca, and thank you, Steve. So we have a grant that we're going to do this evening, and it is an inaugural grant, and it is the 2022 Greater Lowell Community Foundation Newell Flather Legacy Grant. I'm going to talk a little bit about how that came to be, but I'd also like to ask Karen Carpenter if she'd come up here and join me at the podium right now. Karen is the president of the Theodore Edson Parker Foundation, a great partner of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. So give her a hand, please. So this year, it is the Foundation's honor to present the inaugural Greater Lowell Community Foundation Newell Flather Legacy Fund grant. The Newell Flather Legacy Fund was established by the Parker Foundation in 2022 at GLCF to support nonprofits focused on the arts, immigrant and refugee communities, and/or advancing equity and inclusion in the city of Lowell. This grant award was established to honor the legacy of Newell Flather, a Lowell native and a renowned philanthropist who passed away last year. Newell was the chair of the Parker Foundation for some 40 years and the past president. Newell was a great supporter of Lowell, a great supporter of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and a dear friend and supporter of mine. This grant of $12,500 was made possible by a fund that was established by the Parker Foundation at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation for $250,000, and that's in the making. This $12,500 represents 5% of what the total of that fund will be, and is the amount that's being awarded here today. And that amount is being awarded to the Coalition for a Better Acre, CBA. This award is for their health access programming in Lowell. The Health Access Program Coordinator has developed a Meal of the Week program to be offered at CBA's food pantry. And in connection with the ongoing health sessions for low-income women, this approach will provide participants with healthy and nutritious meal kits every week. A resource guide will be distributed as well. This resource guide will offer descriptions to inform people of potential benefits to obtain culturally connected food. It is my pleasure to give them this grant. It was just a little aside as we were going through all this, and we had these grants in front of us, and we were chatting about this, and young Ju had no idea this was going on. I was having coffee with her, and I was saying, tell me, we were talking about stuff. She goes, I want to tell you about this. And she says, this is amazing. And not only are we getting, the cultural correct food to folks, but this whole circle was creating this group of people, and the circle got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it, not only dealt with the nutritious food, but it created a network of people that came together for this whole thing. So I am thrilled to present this to Young Ju and to the CBA. And I know they would like to say a word. And it's Cecilia Gutierrez, Yapar, okay, and also Ivana Doer. Dower, I was close. There was one or two ways I could pronounce that, and I picked the wrong one. My apologies. But those are the folks that do the work. Of course, Youngju sits on the Greater Lowell Community Foundation board, and one of the things that the Greater Lowell Community Foundation board has is many people that do the work in the community. They're nonprofits. And so when we talk about the needs in the community that I made reference to earlier, I don't have to go too far to get some really good intel, say, this is what's going on in the Greater Lowell area. So, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We are very excited to be here. As he presented me, my name is Cecilia Gutierrez Shapur. I am the Director of Program of CVA, and I'm here with, all you know her, Youngju Cho, our Executive Director, and Ivana Dower, she's our Health Access Program Coordinator. And we are more than honored to be here receiving the inaugural 2022 Greater Lowell Community Foundation Newell Flather Legacy Fund Grant, especially because the Parker Foundation has been instrumental on helping CVA start the programs that we are running now. Parker Foundation gave CVA the very first private foundation grant that we ever received, and after that, all of the other ones came. So thank you so much.
I'm just saying thank you. I have one sentence. We are very thankful for the continuous and generous support of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much for all that you do.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Don't want the check in there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
She was looking for a big...
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't have the big check to do tonight. It wouldn't fit in my pocket. I've recognized a few people tonight, but before we start with the program and thing, I want to represent two folks that support the Greater Lowell Community Foundation amazingly well. And those are two representatives in the city of Lowell. I'd like to recognize Vanar Howard, our representative from Lowell, from downtown. And I'd also like to recognize Roddy Mom, who's joined us here tonight as well. The connections between the foundation and the folks that help govern our community are deep, and we love them. And we thank so much for all the work they do all the time. We would not have the ability to do much of what we do if we didn't have support from our legislative delegation in the community as a whole. So now we get into the program where it's going to be the power of philanthropy. And I'd like to now welcome our guests to the stage. And if you could come up after I call your name, that'd be fine. So we've got Nancy Huntington Stager, who is the president and CEO of Eastern Bank Foundation. Thank you, Nancy, for joining us. And Sophy Theam, who is a trustee of the Theodore, Edson, Parker Foundation and manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Vice President at Enterprise Bank. John Flanagan. John Flanagan is the Senior Director of Westford Corporate Citizenship of Red Hat. And Siddhi Shah Cheong, who is the Head of Strategy Development in MilliporeSigma and representing the Shruti Shah Memorial Scholarship Fund. So give them all a warm welcome. So what is the power of philanthropy? I mean, what is it? I mean, as I ask that question, I'm hopeful things are going through your mind. You're going, how do I define philanthropy? Well, for me, and what it's always been, and I know it's true for many in this room, it's just little acts of kindness, or even major monetary awards, doing something for the benefit of somebody without any expectation of reward. You do it because it's the right thing that you want to do. And up here tonight, interestingly enough, and perhaps you've already made notice of that, is the spectrum of philanthropy that is sitting in front of you right now. A private foundation, a corporate foundation, a corporate donor advised fund, and an individual. Each of which comes from a different perspective, each of which has different governing perspectives, each of which has different funding that goes with all of that, but each of which also deals with the power of philanthropy. And so what I'd like to do, just to start, and they have full license, by the way, to interrupt me, ask questions, and do whatever they want throughout the evening. And you didn't have to appreciate that so much, Sue. But and interestingly enough, having chatted with all of them, I have no doubt they'll do exactly that. But I'm going to start with how I did the intros. And I'm going to ask the first question, which is just a brief intro to get a context for all the folks that are here as to how did you get engaged in philanthropy in the first place? When was it? Was it the job that you just took? Was there something when you were growing up that you went, this makes a difference to me? So I'll start from my left. Of course, you're right, and we'll go. And so Nancy, can we start with you on that?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to see such a great big crowd, so thanks for coming out on such a soggy night. I've been involved in community activities for my entire conscious life. My parents were very involved. They got me involved. I've gotten my kids involved. And, you know, I think there's no better experience than giving back to your community. I got into philanthropy completely by accident. Our Eastern Bank Foundation's been around for 28 years. I've been at Eastern for 27. And a few years into my tenure, the CEO, Stan Lakowski at the time, came to me and said, I've had it with the business lines fighting over the foundation. You're Switzerland, you're going to run it. So there I was, running the Eastern Bank Foundation, and I had the able
asylum. And when we got to the States, we lived in Connecticut. We didn't really have clothes, so we would always get donated clothes from the church who had sponsored us over. And, you know, that church did meals for the needy. We always participated in that. We did gift wrapping during the holidays to earn some money for our programs. And that was when I was, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 years old. Again, I did not know what the word philanthropy was at that time. And growing up as a refugee, you know, it's an experience. There's a lot of bitter experiences that we go through. And we see a lot of loss. We see a lot of sadness, a lot of mental health, you know, conditions, people with PTSD, and it was really hard. And growing up, again, not knowing the word philanthropy, I was like, you know, how can I help people? I always wanted to be a doctor, so I actually enrolled in pre-med course, but I wasn't good in science, so I dropped out. But then I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I continued to do things that would make people aware of the tragedies and catastrophes that people go through in life.
I would never think that I would ever be in philanthropy because, like Jay had said earlier, you know, for a lot of people, philanthropy is for the rich, those, you know, who have made it, who have a lot of money, big pockets, you know, and I certainly don't have that. But how I was introduced to the Parker Foundation was, I call him Uncle Newell Flather. He reached out to me when I was doing a side job. I left the CMA for a little bit, and I did company managing some artists from Cambodia. And he came up to me at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and you know, and he said, "Oh, you know, we struck a conversation, built a little friendship." I didn't know who he was, just this tall guy. Philanthropic work, apparently.
Indeed you are. Thank you. So John, same question.
I think for me, there were two things that intersected. It were my children, when I moved into Westford, when I started like coaching soccer with them, getting involved in the community, and then building a company in the community. Those two things. So he invited me to go to a Westford Rotary meeting. And that opened my eyes to the possibilities of philanthropy because I hadn't really seen that. I'd heard about it from my children, you know, watching them intersect with people in the community, but joining Westford Rotary and starting to get involved with the philanthropy they were doing, and as a company that was philanthropy. Rotary is great about that because they have so many organizations they support it. So it was kind of a set of training wheels for me to figure out what kind of organizations existed out there. So I was very fortunate to have that experience.
Well, you graduated from those training wheels for sure. Siddhi.
Well, hi everyone, and I'm glad I'm kind of a lower middle class family. But what I do remember is that my sister and I now had all of these opportunities in front of us, but constantly being mindful of the fact that we had family in India who didn't have that opportunity, and that needed it. And it didn't matter if it was going to be an exorbitant amount of money or just a little bit to pay for their tuition to get them to that next level.
Well, thank you for that. And incidentally, if you've not looked at the program, the bios for these folks are in there. And I didn't go through. And so, not sure whether or not that, I doubt it came as a result of that, but you've also established a scholarship at Lowell High School. And it was for financial need and I think community service. But if you
Correct. Yeah, and what really motivated me was, as I saw my parents giving back, I wanted to give back too. And for me, my community was Lowell, and so I wanted to be able to give.
So, discussions that you've had, hard questions. I mean, so what were some of the discussions you did have with your family as you were dealing with that? And how did you resolve those? And why did you end up the
thinking that we needed to establish a trust. We needed to then, go through scholarship applications and how are we going to rank applicants and all of the time commitment that would be involved in just moving. Was a matter of 60 minutes spread across a handful of weeks. So we're talking about a couple of calls here and there, 15 minutes or so, and it
Every single year, it's probably about $375,000 that goes out the door to probably about 350 individual students. And they range from small dollars to large dollars. It's the self-esteem, that pat on the back that you give somebody that you've got the ability to go to college, and here's step one. Because as anyone knows, the road that Red Hat had. And I said, and it was kind of a similar question that I just had, Siddhi, is how did you come to this? The Red Hat, what Red Hat has with the Greater Lowell Community Foundation,
through corporate finance can be interesting. So in the first 15 years or so of trying to do this, when we find great organizations, and then I finally agree, I'm going to give you $1,000. This is great. Well, now you come into our terms of payment, which can be 60 to 90 days. So you might at one of these events before the pandemic, and we had this conversation about how do I fix this? Like, how do I get to a sense year before, we were trying to figure out something we could do to impact during COVID. I'm like, are there organizations that could benefit from us giving some money who are struggling to deal with COVID from a technology issue? Because we don't really have, the eyes in the community for that. And Greater Lowell offered that into, here are organizations that we know about that would benefit from some funding to get them over the hump technology during COVID. So it's been a great win-win, but for me, the big thing is just being able to get that immediacy, get the money where it needs to go, and get it there in time, and not have it be this faceless donation that's made.
well, thank you for that. And thank you again for selecting Greater Lowell Community Foundation to assist you in your philanthropy. So, Sophy, if anyone's catching me here, I'm going down the thing and then I'm coming back again. So, the Parker Foundation's been around for a while, established back in '44. And of course, the focus of the Parker Foundation is predominantly Lowell. So you've got a gateway city that's got the variety of different issues that they have. We've got, significant diversity. We've got the same challenges that most gateway cities has. So how does the Parker Foundation, do the screening, the viewing, what's going on in Lowell, and try to come up with how do we position ourselves in a way, because your focus is Lowell, to how do we get the biggest impact in Lowell? I'm very familiar with all of what you do, and of course you do have a huge impact in Lowell, and I want to thank you for that. But it's probably not a lot different to what the Greater Lowell Community Foundation does, but I'm interested in the insights for a Parker Foundation, for a private foundation that has been doing amazing work for many, many years. How do you do that now, and how are you thinking of doing that as you proceed?
Well, this is a question that Karen perhaps could better answer, but I will try as well. Because we mostly fund organizations that serve the residents of Lowell, it makes it a little bit easier in terms of the number of organizations that actually apply for the Parker Foundation. Some cycles will get quite a bit, but some cycles, aren't so robust. I think in order to, I guess it's hard to say, how we decide. I think we all of the applications that come in are worthy of our support, because they're addressing pretty much all the needs, of a community. I think it's just a matter of the amount, typically, that we decide to give. And I think CBA had mentioned it, we like to do some challenge grants because we do want to bring outside organizations to help fund as well. I think that there's a huge range of needs that are out there. We are fortunate that we have restarted our advisors program where, we had 3 advisors. Now one of them is our newest trustee, Maria Cunha, over there.
A good choice.
And because they also live and work in Lowell, I also I don't live in Lowell, I live in Chelmsford, but it's close enough. But I do live in Lowell. I work in Lowell, my goodness, and I lived in Lowell. But we do have our eyes and ears out as well for other needs. So when, when we're reviewing the applications, and sometimes, we question, hey, what's going on in this area, COVID-wise or education-wise or whatever, and then we kind of, do a little digging to see if we can further help in any capacity. Because a lot of times people may be hesitant to apply, probably for a number of reasons, but, I just want to say that if you become hesitant, just please come talk to us because we do want to serve, the needs as much as possible. And it's been a great experience being, on the trustee board of the foundation. I think we all have to work with a lot of compassion as well. So a lot of times if we see organizations who may be just starting up, they may not have the resources to do something big or even have a fundraiser or a development person to write some of those grant applications, which could be horrific experience because it takes a lot of data and so on and so forth. We want to be able to help those organizations because ultimately the startups are doing something good, and that's what the purpose of philanthropy is as well. So, and then to see the impact of, the organizations on their clients and so on and so forth in the future, that's kind of, I don't know if there's anything else, in particular, but we do fund a huge range of needs, and I think there's really no need that's not worthy to be supported.
Yeah, there's certainly more needs than philanthropy can address. So the process that is utilized to go through that and make some very, very difficult decisions is tough. And anybody that does that, and that happens at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation too, you got to give a lot of credit to. It's like, where do you draw the line? And you need to draw the line because you haven't got all the money to do what you want to do. So Nancy, I'm going to ask you a similar question, which is, how do you do that? But what I'd like you to also do in that context, you got a great event coming up next Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Could you tell the crowd a little bit about that? Because that actually goes right back to why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm. So we have a big event that we do every year, and we're back in person again for the first time post-COVID. Let's hope it's post-COVID. And it is our celebration of social justice. This is an event that brings together hundreds of nonprofits, other funders, other businesses, to celebrate social justice, to come together and to network, to collaborate, to partner on future grants, to do a number of things, and to celebrate someone who has dedicated their career. Last year, we recognized Gladys Vega from La Colaborativa in Chelsea. This year, we're recognizing Ralph Martin, who many of you know too, from Boston. So thanks for raising that. And it's an exciting time, and I can't wait for it to be here and to be over sometimes. But anybody who's planned an event knows what that's like, because we're a week out.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
But the other part is the same question I asked Sophie, which is, you guys see a ton of grants all the time too. And you've done amazing work in that space that you just made reference to, which is the social justice and racial equity. How do you, when you folks are getting together and the board's getting there, it's kind of like, okay, we got X amount of dollars and you go out lots of money all the time. And the Greater Lowell Community Foundation is very happy to say that we've been the recipient of some of your generosity. So thank you so much, particularly during COVID, which we turned around and gave to a whole bunch of people that are in this room and more so. So thanks so much for that. But how do you go about that too? How's that process work at the Eastern Bank Foundation?
Well, it takes good partners. I think it sounded like that through all of your conversations, and that's certainly my experience. Having good partners in the community, like Greater Lowell Community Foundation, helps us to know where the needs are and how we can best address it. We were talking at the beginning of the event about, we made actually $3 million in unsolicited grants on March 16th, 2020, so immediately. The only way we could do that was to have trusted partners in the community. We have over 100 locations. The only way for us to be able to do this in New Hampshire, through Eastern Mass, and into Rhode Island and the Cape is to have trusted partners. We reached out to you. We made a donation because we knew you would turn that around and give it to the organizations in Lowell that were doing work to help people to get through the biggest crisis we've seen across our region in living memory. And so, it's really, it comes down to having that trusted partnerships. Ultimately, nothing moves, nothing happens without trust. And so working with you and with other partners, we have that trusted relationship, and we can affect the impact that we want to have by working with you.
Well, thank you so much for that. So one of the things that has been a discussion of late, and this question's open for all, but it's prominently, I think, with Red Hat and Easton, is it's about business philanthropy and how that is used to retain, and keep employees and make the work experience not just a 9-to-5 job. And as you look at your strategic plan, and my perspective is if you don't have philanthropy in your strategic plan, you are missing something in your strategic plan. And so can you talk a little bit about the strat plan? Nancy, I'll start with you again on that very topic. And how important is that? We see stuff out there today. I look at Patagonia, it blows you away, right? He gives away the company to a nonprofit. That's amazing. He was doing tons of stuff pre that anyways. But that whole movement is not new, but I think it is more profound today than it's been in a long time. And if you could just speak to that, because I just think that's really important, not only but it's also important from the customer side too.
Yeah. Well, I think that we do our philanthropy and have for 28 years because it's the right and smart thing to do. And an artifact of the right and smart thing is that we're able to attract customers, we're able to attract employees. I was the chief HR officer for Eastern for 25 years, and I would routinely go into large group settings and have somebody say, "Oh, I'd love to work at Eastern, I'll do anything." That doesn't happen very often, and it happens because you build the brand with our employees out in the community, backing that up with philanthropy, backing that up with advocacy, using our corporate voice to be able to affect change across the region and in individual communities. You're absolutely right. If you're not really working in this way, sometimes people say it's the younger generations that really want you to do this, but the truth of it is every generation wants to be proud of where they work, and they want to be able to participate and to join with colleagues and join with community partners. And the more you can do that, the more community you build inside your company.
How do you see that on the customer side? I mean, the employee side for sure, but customer side too.
Yeah, I'm sure you see it at Red Hat too, but we definitely see it. People come to us on the retail side, on the bank, on the business side, because they like what we're doing, because they see us in boards, because they see us in the paper, they know what Eastern's about, and we've got a track record of doing it. It's not just a one and done and, trying to do it for marketing purposes. We don't do it for marketing purposes. We do it because it's right and smart. And that also brings members of governance to us too. Our board of directors, our advisors and ambassadors, some of whom are in this room right now, so thank you. It helps us tie all together. Ultimately, the more our communities thrive, the better a banking environment is. So, it does tie back to the business. So it is part of the bank's strategic plan.
So John, I'm going to go to you next on that same question.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting, this event is timed during We Are Red Hat Week. So this is an event that we do at the company every October where we celebrate the culture of Red Hat. So it's a software company, and our base of our company technology is the Linux operating system. If you've ever heard about that, it's open source, right? You can see the source code. So imagine the culture that comes with that, right? It's all about transparency and giving and giving back, right? So it's built into our culture. So every We Are Red Hat Week, we celebrate not only the culture of how the company got to where we are, but how as employees we're able to celebrate that and give back to the community, which means a couple of things at Red Hat. So community in one sense is the communities of technology that we work with. So a lot of the new technology that's coming out that makes the next generation of operating system starts in the open source where there are universities working together on the source code. That's one kind of community. And then there's a community like you all here, which is how we give back to the communities that need our financial support, our the support of us going and working in the community. And so at Red Hat, we have a couple different vehicles for doing that. At the corporate level, we have a matching gift program. So this year, we match up to $1,500 for whatever you want to do, assuming as long as it's a 501c3. But we use Benevity as a platform where you can go and give back to that. And that's great. And during We Are Red Hat Week, we accentuate that. We say, let's remind you that this is a great opportunity for you to go and do that. And then at the local level, here in Westford, we have our committee that we will take in incoming requests, and then we work with the Greater Lowell Community Foundation to get those donations out. And then one other thing that happened probably about 10 or 12 years ago, we used to have great Christmas parties every year. And then we said, why are we doing this? This seems very selfish. We need to figure out a better way to celebrate this. And so we created a pot of money instead that we would have the employees corporate-wide vote on who to give the money to instead of spending it on our parties. And so we'd go out, solicit input from the employees, send us some suggestions of who you would like to give the money to. And now we use rank voting on that. So if the top 5 that come back, we will give the money. We give basically it would have been spent on beer and pizza. We give to organizations. Again, yet another dimension way that employees can feel incentivized to give back.
Well, cool. So, Sophie, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to ask you not in your role on the Parker Foundation. I'm going to ask you in your role working at Enterprise Bank. I think everybody in this room knows that Enterprise Bank is definitely in the philanthropy space. And could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And I think Allison and Chet have been doing a great job with handling that side of things. But as it relates to our team members and our customers, that's one of the reasons I think why people do want to work at Enterprise Bank also. When we plan for events, for example, through our employee resource groups, we just had one last week for Spirit Day, where we raised money for the Center for Hope and Healing. when, we're doing a baked potato day, which our ITIS department just loves to organize, and they raise a lot of money for Sun Santa, and they collect raffle donations from our employees and departments, and everybody just gets in the spirit, and wanting to contribute that way as well. There's a ton of other opportunities, and similar, I think, to Red Hat, we offer end-of-year gifts, but some people don't want an item, and so we actually give them the option of choosing a nonprofit of their choice. And poor Allison Burns, she comes with a huge spreadsheet of these requests, but if it's $50 or $100 to a small nonprofit organization in North Central, that's okay. If it's $200 to the Boys and Girls Club, it's okay, because that's what the employees want, and so that's a great way of including our team members as a part of this whole philanthropy process, and of course, sponsoring and being a part of the various community events that we have, all within our geographic footprints make a difference. And I think the thing with customers also, sometimes we have, certain drives, whether it's donation drive for coats, or we actually have a current one going on for blankets for veterans. We do let our customers know too at the branches, and so we actually get a lot of donations that way as well. And it's just really heartfelt, to receive those donations from our customers and our team members for a lot of the different efforts that we have throughout the year.
Well, thank you for that. In Siddhi, so I'm familiar with some of the philanthropy that MilliporeSigma does as an employee. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so as a publicly traded company, we have our shareholders that we need to address. We need to align with our customers, and then of course our employees. And so what it fundamentally comes down to is we have a function internally that is focused on corporate social responsibility, and that's people, profit, and the planet. And as head of strategy, one of my jobs is to make sure that as we define our strategy and how we're going to grow the business, there's also a chapter in that presentation that talks very specifically about where we're going to focus over the next few years, how we're going to really impact people and the planet beyond our profit margins. And then, that's much more at a corporate level. On an individual level, one of the things I love about MilliporeSigma is the fact that they have an opportunity to match up to $1,000 every year. And I take full advantage of that. And I encourage other organizations to consider that as well, maybe in addition to some of the efforts that are already underway.
Thank you.
I just want to mention too, so you can go to most publicly traded companies and pull their CSR reports to see what what their profile is. You can go to Red Hat, you can go to IBM, Sigma. Most of these companies will have that too. If you're ever interested to see what is the giving profile of a certain company, you should be able to find their CSR report on their website.
Correct. Yeah.
So for all the nonprofits in the room, do you know what that is? Okay. Because they're all going to be asking me that question afterwards. How do I find that information? So one of the things I do want to do is ask a final question to each of you. And the final question is, and thank you for, participating as you have this evening, and it doesn't have to be in the role that you're currently in. It's just a wide open question, which is, what is the most fulfilling moment you've ever had in philanthropy? So I'm going to let you think about that for a second. And I want folks out there to think about the same thing. What was it? What's the little anecdote that when you stop and say, what was that act of kindness I did? Writing checks is cool, make no mistake. But what was that little act of kindness? Where did I make a difference somewhere? And it could be the check too. I mean, and it's not always the amount. It's a little bit like I made a note just a moment ago with the scholarships. $250 opens doors for people in a way that you never would have imagined until such time as you do that. Okay, so that's long enough to think. And I'm starting with you, Nancy, again, please.
I have two answers.
Okay.
The
You can
first,
have multiple answers, that's okay.
sorry. The first is, if you think about what is the most fulfilling moment in philanthropy, that is literally any time I see our dollars doing good in the community. Literally, when I meet people on the street and I hear what's been done, or others tell me what they've heard we've done, or I can just see populations that are benefiting from it. So, that is truth, right? That is why we do it. If you're going to make me pick a single point, it was really at the beginning of COVID when we did a series of the unsolicited grants, and we literally had leaders of nonprofits in tears on the phone because they were, trying to do their best to serve their clients, their guests, their neighbors, and we were able to help them do that. So I think that would be
cool.
the single one. Yeah.
Sophie?
I think for me, there's a number of different times, but to kind of talk about how the impact of philanthropy has made, especially on individuals who perhaps wouldn't necessarily have the vision or the thought that they could become somebody in the near future or, 10, 20 years from now. So I think for me anyway, personally, because I've seen, a lot of young people who perhaps are hopeless, right? They have low self-esteem. They don't see themselves as important people, who could contribute to society. But because we're supporting the organizations, that they may have benefit from 10, 20, 30 years down the road, they become a successful and productive citizen, and they're contributing and giving back to society. I think that's kind of where I think philanthropy is very powerful and can impact those who may be so hopeless to, someone who becomes an inspiration for the younger generations.
Thank you. John?
All right, for the risk of not calling out a particular organization, it happened in this room. So the first time I brought folks from Red Hat here and saw what happens here, and this, was the philanthropy, and if you look around the room and you see those GED plaques that are on the walls there, and I brought a number of my employees here, and we heard the stories and saw it. I mean, we were just emotional. So the fact to see something like that in real life, to hear the stories, and then be able to go back to Red Hat and pass that message on, I mean, it was amazing. So for me, that was most fulfilling, just to be able to have the tactile experience of giving come alive.
Siddhi?
Yeah, so I would say there was one real event that served as a catalyst and a domino. And that was really back in 2018 when I connected with Project Learn. And I was at a point in my life where I was ready to give back to a cause that I believed in. And why I say it was a domino effect was that my initial interaction with Project Learn was donation of time. I helped them analyze some of the inputs they were getting from their board. Then it turned into donation of expertise, where I helped them in 2018 build their strategic plan. And then ultimately I joined their board and was in a position where I could financially donate to Project Learn. But that set of events is what motivated my parents to start thinking about Lowell as their own community to give back to and establish the scholarship. And it also propelled my sister to think about how can she go give back. And she recently joined the board of Girls Inc. So for me, it's really taking a step back and realizing the influence that we all have sitting here today and how something so minor can really snowball into something much more meaningful. And not only are we impacting the community that we're giving back to, but we're also motivating others to potentially do the same in whatever capacity that they can.
Oh, thank you. And because I've got the microphone, I can share my story. So anybody who saw the newsletter from yesterday, I alluded to it in there. And during COVID, when folks were all working remote, I went to the office. My house is a mile away. It was easier to do that. And my wife and I celebrated 40 years not that long ago, and I think part of the reason me going to the office helped that. But when I went in there, one of the things I was doing that I hadn't done before, I mean, I would usually see all the mail, but I was opening the mail. This was in the middle of COVID. And so I'm opening up these letters, and there's checks in there. And I'm looking at the checks, and I'm looking at the little notes that are on the checks. And you're looking at the handwriting. These are checks for $5 and $10. And I'm like, whoa. You can tell that they're from somebody that's probably a person that is older. My handwriting is getting there too. And there were little notes on them, like, help the children. Take care of those who are most in need. And I was like, and to be honest with you, when I started to open the mail every day after that, I was bringing tissues into my office because it was bringing me to tears as I recount these. It does it to me a little bit right now. But it gets back to what Nancy said earlier a little bit, and it was about trust. And I said, we definitely have the trust of the community. And the work we've done and how we've done it was evident in a $5 check. That was my moment. So, thank you. Well, let's give another round of applause for this great panel here today. I want to thank all you folks for coming out tonight. Of course, we've got folks that are, beaming in with us tonight too, that are here virtual. I want to thank them as well. We are extremely grateful for your support. We wouldn't be able to do the work we do unless you helped us do it. So thank you for that. And good night.